I am Catherine DeCristofaro. I am a librarian with St. Mary's County Library, and we are so incredibly lucky to be hosting Miss Beverly Jenkins, romance author extraordinaire, with us this evening. Miss Beverly Jenkins is the recipient of the 2017 Romance Writers of America Nora Roberts Lifetime Achievement Award, as well as the 2016 Romantic Times Reviewer Choice Award for Historical Romance. She's been nominated for the NAACP Image Award in Literature, featured in documentary Love Between the Covers, and on CBS Sunday Morning. And she just writes absolutely gorgeous books. And if you have not read them, go to your library, go buy them, and start that as soon as we're done here. But first, let's listen to this wonderful woman talk about romance.
Hey,
Um,
go ahead.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. We had, all these people who were just getting here. We had a few glitches getting started. You couldn't put me on the camera for some reason, but we fixed that.
We did.
I
Yeah,
know. I finished a novella this morning at 4 a.m.
I saw that.
So, girlfriend's a little bit whacked out here, a little bit tired, but you guys have given me energy to get started. So, I'm not sure what you want me to say. I know we got 1,000 questions.
Well, if it's okay with you, would you, I saw your tweet about your novella. Would you mind telling our participants just a little bit about it so they can get excited too?
It sort of came out of nowhere. This is not my regular publisher. It's just Montlake, which is Amazon. But it's what I tweeted was, what do you get when a librarian meets a former mercenary? You get a lighthearted novella. It's romantic suspense. I was cracking myself up writing it this morning at about 3 a.m. So hopefully it's fun, a little bit suspensey. And since librarians are, I love librarians and I love libraries. So this was kind of a cool thing. It's 25,000 words, about 100 pages. Montlake does not have the lengthy turnaround time that we're used to from traditional publishers. So supposedly, it will be available in the fall.
Oh,
Edits have to come back and all that, but I also have a historical due to my lovely editor at Avon this fall, so I'm gonna be juggling, a few things.
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, but and then I also have to finish the Blessings 11, which was the Christmas that was supposed to be out this year, but life was so crazy
Oh,
last
yeah.
year. It was just like, no, can't do all of this. So it will be available for Christmas of next year. So I figure when I finish all of this, it'll be January, and I'll be ready for a padded room. But you readers and librarians and booksellers, and everybody gives me the blessings that I need and the energy that I need to get things done. So thanks so much for being in my corner.
Oh my goodness. We are just so, I mean, the fact that it's going to be in the fall is amazing. I was like, well, we'll probably have to wait, what, like 2 years, but
Nope.
cool.
This is my first venture with them. So, and I didn't know, what their heat levels are like or, what their editorial process is. I sort of, reined in the heat because I wasn't sure. So when I get the revision letter back, we'll see whether we get to amp it up or
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's pretty high right now, but it's kind of condensed. So
Yeah,
we'll see what the future brings.
that's very exciting. Well, so yeah, if it's okay with you, Ms. Bev, I'm going to go through. I had some questions that were submitted from some people who signed up, some that were just ones that I wanted to ask you,
Okay,
and we'll do some. And then if we have time at the end, we'll ask some questions from the audience, if that's
sounds
okay
good.
with you.
Let's
Great.
go.
So one of the ones that was actually I like to ask, and somebody did submit as well, if you could talk about your writing process. How do you start with that first idea to the last line? Is there a method you do each time? Does it change? How does that work for you?
Pantser. And for those who are new to, romance, I guess this is something that's across lines and writers. There are basically two kinds of writers. There are plotters those who do outlines and very, very intensive. They know everything that's going to happen. One of my author buddies, Betty Ford, is an intense plotter. Betty knows everything that's going to happen in a story from the first, consonant of the first word to the D in the end. But pantsers, we sort of don't know what we're doing now. We go organically. For me, I'll have maybe a kernel of a trope, or a kernel of a character, or a kernel of a time period that I want to write in, and then I wander around for a while, like sort of like Moses in the desert, looking for the promised land. And in this case, I'm looking for the story. And it, comes to me in pieces. And then maybe 2 weeks in, I'll sort of know what I'm doing. And I just let the characters tell the story. I did an interview with Sarah over at Smart Bitches, and I told her, I said, sometimes I feel like my characters are in the corner of my office laughing at me because they know the story and I don't. For me, the story is already on the page. It's just, am I smart enough and intuitive enough and quiet enough in my brain to hear what the characters are saying? So basically, character-driven pantsers, or pantsing, is my my method. It's a mad method. I've talked to plotters who are absolutely terrified of this kind of a process. They said they no way could they work like that. So, but it's fun. If I have to put everything down and outline and all of that, then I feel like the energy's gone out of the story and I'm ready to move on to the next story. So, so I'm a pantser. That's my process.
I like that.
I see that the sun's killing me. Sorry, guys.
Oh.
To the right in a few minutes, so we'll bear with it.
So knowing that your characters are how that kind of drive the story, any character that was laughing at you more than others, any that made you extra mad?
Yes. Well, they all do. But one that I remember specifically in the Blessing series, Malachi July just did some really, really dumb, stupid stuff in one of the books, and he left town. And I had no idea where he was. So, but I needed to know where he was in order to complete the book. So here I am. It's like 3 a.m. The book's due at 9. I'm in the bathroom in the dark, screaming at the mirror, "Where are you?" And it came to me right then. It was like character said, here you go. Here's the piece that's been missing. And I'm like, y'all couldn't have told me this 2 weeks ago. So I added that, turned the book in. But I remember that one specifically because I couldn't move forward with the story without knowing his location. So he was in the Oklahoma oil fields.
Oh, my goodness. That is not kind of him to be hiding out on you like that.
It was not. I'm still very, very upset with him about keeping that information from me.
So your historical novels in particular are so incredibly well researched. I have learned more about Reconstruction, I think, from your novels than I did in school. Yeah. How can you talk a little bit about your research process?
Most of the history, I think, that is taught in schools leaves out a lot of stuff. So that part I know because, that's what they taught us in school. But if you want to know about the pieces that have been left out, you leave the white gaze, and in my case, you go with the historians who look at it with an African American gaze, or a Native American gaze, or a Chinese American gaze. And you find that all of these interesting and sometimes very, very painful And sometimes very triumphant parts are there. So I make a point of using a different gaze, for lack of a better word, when I do my research. And having worked in libraries most of my adult life before, I started this journey, I know how to do the research. Um, I grew up with African American history in my home, so that was not a stretch for me. But I'm finding all kinds of incredible things to put in the stories. I call it edutainment, entertainment and education. So giving you a great love story, um, depending on the story, lots of heat. The Blessings books have no heat. It's all off page. But I'm also threading that history that we probably did not, I mean, none of us probably learned in school, to give you a look at history from a different perspective and to try and stitch back into the American history quilt those pieces that have either ripped out or left out or hidden. So that's sort of my take on the research.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that you were a librarian before.
Well, I'm not, I'm not a certified
Oh,
librarian, but I worked in libraries starting my freshman year in college. My junior year, I was a page. My junior year, the head clerk job for circulation uh, in a graduate library opened up, and my bosses offered me that position. That's all I never wanted to be a writer. All I ever wanted to do was work in a library. And so when the position came open and they offered it to me, I didn't even take finals that year. I just went to work. And so I was in charge of all the kids who did the shelving and, claims returns and, all of the fun stuff. We put up shelving, did the shelving, looked for missing books, all that stuff. I was in my early 20s. So I went from there. And then when my husband and I, this was at Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan, not the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, people. Spartan, not a Wolverine. Um, and then my husband and I moved, we moved back to civilization because we moved to Big Rapids where Ferris State was for a while. And I worked in a special library. I worked for Park Davis Pharmaceuticals, um, which was bought by Warner Lambert, which was bought by Pfizer. So it was what we call special libraries. It was at their reference desk. They didn't need a degree. So I've done all kinds of,
yeah.
library stuff. And, people say, well, you're going to go back and get your degree? I'm like, no.
No.
Why am I going to pay somebody to teach me what I already know? I think the only thing I have not done is cataloging. I've done
Wow.
binding. I've done, like I said, circulation. And I've done, all of that good stuff. So, and then Michigan State had a full collection, a full set of the Journal of Negro History. And I used to take those out for lunch. There's a river that runs through campus, and sit on the banks of, it's called the Red Cedar River, sit on the banks of the river and go through all of them. And little did I know that I was preparing myself for this job as a historical romance writer using the information that was in the Journal of Negro History. So life is kind of strange sometimes, but fun.
So how did you come to writing romance? When you realized you wanted, was it writing or romance that came first in the process, or did it kind of come together?
Well, for this, it came together. I was, and the people who have seen my Zooms before know that I was the editor of my elementary school newspaper in the 4th grade. And I always did, scribbling and short stories, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was to work in a library. I was one of those kids that I read everything in my neighborhood library, from the kiddie books to the teen books to the adult books. And I was working at Park Davis, and one of my colleagues had written a sweet romance. The sweet romance is a romance that has no love scenes on the page, for those who may wonder about that. Um, and she'd gotten published with a small publisher. We were celebrating her. And for me, I was writing what would be Night Song on the side because the market was basically closed to African American mass market writers back then. This was early 80s, mid 70s. And so I told her about this manuscript I was working on. She wanted to see it, brought it in. She read it, told me to get it published, and I'm like, where? So, I told the story of that, she harassed me every day about, finding an agent, and because this was before self-publishing. You had to go the traditional route unless you're going to do a vanity publishing. And so, first, I can't tell you, I found Vivian Stevens, who was the founder of Romance Writers of America.
Yeah.
Vivian was a big-time editor at Dell and at Harlequin. She, I like to think she sort of started American romance. And she had published Sandra Kitt, which was the first African-American to write for Harlequin. And she had published Elsie Washington, who was probably one of the first Black writers, period, during romance when she was at Dell. So she had gotten out of publishing, and she had a small literary agency. I don't know if I, saw her name in Romantic Times or I don't know. But anyway, I got my little raggedy manuscript to her, and she called me at the desk probably 5 days later and said she wanted to represent me. So it wound up at Avon. They called me to buy the book on my husband's birthday, June 3rd, 1993. And it was published that next year in the summer of 94. So I've been out here doing this now, 27 years. So I'm having a ball.
That's
So that's
amazing.
basically the short version of how I came to be. The sun is killing me here. All right. I feel like I need to. No matter
Whatever
what.
makes you comfortable.
Okay, well, you guys will just have to see me as a sunspot.
So when you are working on a book, is there a part that's hardest to come up with? And you talk about your characters really jumping off the page. Does the plotting come easily once you figure those people
Yeah,
out?
and I think I don't want to generalize, but I think for most writers, the middle is the hardest part because that's where when I give writing seminars and stuff, I always tell the aspiring writers to think of your story as a sandwich. Because, it should have three parts. It should have the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the meat is the part in the middle. So most of your action and most of your character growth and your character interaction and all of that should be in the middle of the story. And sometimes when you're writing, you know what the beginning is going to be, you know what the ending is a lot of times. But getting to that ending is where the work is put in. So, I mean, it can be difficult. It's still fun. I mean, I wouldn't trade what I do for anything in the world, but it's a lot of work. People sometimes think that, we just go, oh, I'm going to write a book. We write this book and, and then we go out and we buy Cadillacs and all that. No, it's hard work, especially if you're doing, big books with, 60, 70, 80,000 words. And you're writing romance, which I think is one of the hardest genres to write because you're writing about people and you're writing about feelings and you're writing about emotions. And these characters may have baggage and they need to get rid of this baggage. And you got to put that HEA at the end, which is the happily ever after, which is difficult sometimes. We have a lot of people who say, well, you don't really need the The HEA, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's easier to kill the characters off.
Yes.
That's what people do. Oh, I don't write my math, I kill my characters. Yeah, that's the easy part. The hard part is bringing your characters to that HEA point. Um, so I love what I do.
Wonderful. Is your writing process at all different when you're working on one of your series versus one of your standalones?
No, no, everything's different. I mean, everything's the same. When I had Hubby's in Heaven playing golf, and the kids are, grown and gone, and they're still in the area, but they're not here. So I used to write at night because I had a job, and all the trappings of being a mom and a wife and a community person and all of that. So I wrote at night. So now that I am here in the house by myself, which is kind of cool. I mean, I miss my husband, of course, but this empty nest, nothing beats this. This is awesome. I still write at night. So that has not changed. But the only thing that's different, and it's not as different as it used to be, is vocabulary between the historicals and the contemporaries. When we first started, an editor could look at your work and say, this reads like a contemporary because of the language and the structure of the sentences and the length of the sentences and all of that. But that's sort of fallen by the wayside. I got a lot of historicals that would not have passed muster back in the 90s because they sound so much like contemporaries. And I've had to adjust, these 27 years to the changing landscape and the changing paradigm and the changing needs and wants of writing romance. So, and I'm an old hen, I can still be taught, so it's okay.
What was your first introduction to romance, and would you recommend that book today?
I read a little bit of everything. Back when I was reading, I mean, I don't know if there was, I guess I started with what would be back then be the classics. It would have been Victoria Holt and Mary Stewart. Who else? Phyllis Whitney. There were no African Americans at all.
No.
I remember Charlotte Armstrong's The Gift Shop, which I have not read in like 1,000 years, but is probably holds up, I guess, pretty good still. But we took our, I have four sisters, and three of us are stair steps. So, we always loved stuff that had a romantic element in it. So it was the movies, and I was the big reader in the family, though everybody reads, but I was the big reader. So I can't point to just one thing. It was a combination of movies and books and music. Growing up in Detroit, you had Motown, so you had those love songs also. So
Oh, sure.
yeah.
So looking at the heroines you've written in your books, are there any that you just feel more a connection with more than others, or?
I always try and write women who are strong. I don't write victims. The one probably that I really, well, they all have a little bit of me in them. Kate from Topaz snores, and I snore. Vivid, the doctor in Vivid, in my second book, she had this mule called, named Michigan, and she and the mule would be out, running or doing her doctor calls and stuff. And she kept getting lost coming back. She could get there, but she'd get lost coming back. So that's me too. Thank God for Waze now. And I can get to I could, even before Waze, I could get to places, but I couldn't get home. So my daughter's like, Ma, So she has a little bit of me. I have characters who cook. I love to cook. Characters who grow roses. You know, I attempt to grow roses. Um, and then there's Sarita in Edge of Midnight, which was my first contemporary. She's a big football fan. So that's a little bit of me too. So I guess that, there's sprinkles of me in a lot of my heroines, and most of my heroes are based on my husband. Is
That's
uh,
lovely.
yeah, they're supportive, um, teasing, playful um, side of the men that I write is directly related to him. So
Yeah,
mhm.
if you want to read a hero that you can, I love your heroes. I do. I love your heroes. They're swoony, but they're also like they respect women so much, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that.
the readers love them too. Yeah,
Oh,
and they come in all different sizes and shapes and swaggers. And I wrote my first cinnamon roll for Wild Rain. And
yes. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, I love him so much. And so when you were writing Tempest, did you know that Spring would get her own story?
I didn't really know, but everywhere I went, because we could still tour back then, and every email that I received wanted her to have her own story. I mean, she really, really resonated with the readers, and she resonated with me also,
Hmm.
because she was such a force, even in that small role that she had in Tempest. So when it came to doing the second book in the Women Who Dare series, I naturally thought of her because I wanted to know her whole
Yeah.
story too. So she was a good choice, I think, for that second book in that series. I'm getting ready to write the third book. I have no idea who she is going to be
Oh wow.
because I'm a pantser, and she'll come to knock on the door and let me know.
My
But I
gosh.
do need to get started because it's due to Erica soon. Well, not real soon, but soon enough. I got a kernel of a story. I'm a big Marriage of Convenience fan,
Hmm.
and I like, and I've never done an enemies to lovers, I don't think. So I want to combine those two tropes for this next book and see where it takes us.
Now, are there any tropes that you don't enjoy? Like you would say, I would never write a blank.
I that's a funny story. I never liked secret babies. And so we were talking about it, I don't know, on Twitter or Facebook or someplace. And one of the readers said, but Miss Bev, you wrote a secret baby story. I know I did. And they said, yeah, you did. And they pointed out the book, and I was like, damn, I did write a secret baby story. But to me, it was not a secret baby story. It was not a secret baby story, but technically it was. So,
Which
so I
one is that?
Destiny's, no, yeah, Destiny's Surrender with Billy.
That's too
Uh,
funny.
yeah, I'm like, and for me, it wasn't because she wasn't trying to keep the baby from it. She just didn't know who the father was. Uh,
Right. She wasn't hiding it. It was a
and
secret to her, not
to
to.
her, not that,
Right.
he was getting ready to marry somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it was a whole mess.
Oh, that is too funny.
But yeah.
Um, let's see. So, I know that one of your books, Deadly Sexy, has been made into a film.
Mhm.
Did you get to have any input on that process?
Oh yeah. Iris Bowling, who is a fabulous writer, for those of you who don't know her. She's a great romantic suspense writer. She's indie. Got tired of not seeing African American romance stories on the screen.
Hmm.
So she, taught herself filmmaking, formed a small independent company, filmed a couple of her own books, uh, got them on TV in Virginia where she lives. And we were at an event, and she's a big fan of my work. And she said she wanted, asked, could she do Deadly Sexy? And I was like, sure. So we, did a crowdfunding. We raised money, and Um, didn't raise enough money, but she put this. She did the screenplay, and she put the film together with lots of safety pins and paper clips and rubber bands and all of that. And it turned out so well. Oh my God. So I went down and saw the filming, some of the filming. I was on deadline. I'm always on deadline. But I took a weekend off and went down and watched some of the filming. Um, and it was released on like New Year's Eve. And all of us old hens who, got no place to go, we were all watching it, New Year's Eve, the year that it came out. But yeah, I had, and I didn't have to put much input into it because she didn't veer from the book. She loved the book so much that, everything that was in this, in the book, the movie could have been like 4 hours long, the director's cut. But she sold it to Amazon, and they were like, it can't be 4 hours long. So, dialed it back and made some cuts. It's about 90 minutes, 2 hours. So it's still available for anybody who, it's my romantic suspense. I did 5 of those for Avon. So if you're looking for a really cool story, you can see it on Amazon Prime. It's called Deadly Sexy, the movie. We had t-shirts. I got a director's chair with my name on it. I mean, it was all good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there any of your other stories that you could just perfectly picture on film and who you'd cast and everything?
I would love to see Edge of Dawn on the screen. I mean, we've got Black Op helicopters. I get to blow stuff up. We got a heroine who drives an Escalade through the front of the 7-Eleven. We have a treasure map made up of clues from the Underground Railroad quilts. I mean, I would just absolutely love to see that on this, because I think it would be a blockbuster.
I mean, I want to see that now. That sounds amazing.
I know. It's my daughter's favorite scene. Just like, Mom, we got to have a movie. I have got to see, the heroine's name is Nerese. So I've got to see Nerese drive that Escalade through the front of the 7-Eleven. She's trying to save the hero. So she, drives that sucker right through the front door. So yeah, I love doing the romantic suspense that I've done, because I get to blow stuff up and, car chases and all the stuff that you don't really get to do when you're writing historicals.
So you've done historicals. I know you've done like you said, your closed door sort of sweet novels, and you've done romantic suspense. Are there any other genres or subgenres that you want to explore?
I'd like to write fantasy.
Ooh.
I've been lying to my readers about this dragon story I've been promising for the last, 20 years. I've also written YA. I have 2 young adult historicals. But fantasy is probably the only real sandbox that I would really love to play in. But, who's got time? I'm so busy doing other stuff. And I know, not a moment free. But, and in my head, it's sort of written. But, it's like actually sitting down and doing it is the issue.
So you are so wonderful about promoting other authors on Twitter. As a romance reader, I always go and check you out on Tuesdays because I know you're going to be sharing books. What's the last romance that you read that just everyone needs to read?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. It's been such a long time since I've written anything.
Yeah.
I've been just writing. But I got tons of stuff on my TBR. Farrakhan, and I want to get to K.M. Jackson's Men Who Knit, Angelina Lopez. I still haven't read Courtney's, the Duke Who Didn't.
I just started it. It's really good.
I mean, it's so much that, I would like to be able to, once I get the historical done and finish the Blessing series, and I'd like to take, maybe 6 months off and then just do nothing but read. I got Alona Andrews, Blood Air, because I'm a big fantasy reader. You know, I got that to read. Jim Butcher's 2 books that were back to back. I missed those. Those are in my Kindle. So, you know, I pick up I always say, pick up somebody that you've never read before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you need recs, go to Twitter. Folks always reckon stuff on Twitter, seems like every day. Um, because there's a world of wonderful writing out there, from people of all genders, races, heroines of all sizes now, which is a wonderful thing. My heroine in the novella for Monlec is a plus size lady. Um, so there's lots to be discovered if you step out of your comfort zone and go searching. So
So if we had any listeners today who aren't romance readers, if they were, if they came here today and you were going to recommend a romance for somebody who has never read the genre before, which one of your books would you recommend? And if you have another book not by you that you would recommend?
I would recommend Rafe, the Rebecca
Oh,
Weatherspoon.
mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
That book is
A motorcycle riding guy with lots of tats who's also a nanny.
oh, he's so good. I love him.
You know, she's such an awesome writer. I would recommend that. And for my stuff, I would recommend Topaz. I would recommend Edge of Dawn. I'm shameless. I'd recommend everything that I have written.
Yes,
Um,
I second that.
yeah.
Let's see what other things. Oh, so you had mentioned when you started out that self-publishing, like you said, it was a vanity publishing.
Right.
But I know Rebecca Weatherspoon, she's done a lot of self-publishing, and she talks about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you consider that if you could go, if it was today that you were starting, would that be something you'd consider, or do you like the process you went through?
I like the process we went through, and and I'm a big fantasy, sci-fi fantasy reader. You don't mess with the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
because you never know where you're going to end up.
Sure.
And I ended up here, so this is good. But I love the indie ladies, the early indie era, because of their bravery.
Yeah.
I mean, they did not allow traditional publishing to keep them from telling their stories. And they jumped out there and they used the available platform, which was mostly Amazon back then. And they created these stories and they developed their marketing and they developed a whole industry for covers, and just said, the hell with it. We're going forward. And as a result, changed publishing. The money back then was phenomenal. It isn't that way now. But they turned over the table. And I have to give them credit, like I said, for their bravery, for their knowledge, for their stick-to-itiveness, and just for being badass enough to say, we're going to do this regardless. So they have opened the doors for romance and RWA to reevaluate themselves and who they represent, how they represent, the stories that are being told. And as a result, everybody gets to tell their stories now. It doesn't matter who you are, who you love, how you love. Romance has got it for you. And I think because romance is always on the cutting edge, that this has spilled over into other genres, which is a good thing because it's now more reflective of what the country looks like. So my hat's off to people like Courtney Milan and Minx Malone and Kit Roca and Nana Malone and all those women and gentlemen, because there's some guys out there too, who bet on themselves, and it paid off, and it's paying off now for riding in general. So yeah, but would I do it? Yes. I have a story, another one that I've been lying to my readers about. Um, that's a romantic suspense that is an extension of the, excuse me, the 5 that I did for Avon. And I could really see myself doing indie writing, but I'm lazy. I love having Avon marketing and my agent and all of those people and publicity and all those people that do the heavy lifting. I love having them do the heavy lifting. So we'll see what the future holds.
I don't think you can call yourself lazy if you've been writing nonstop for the last year and a half. I feel like I think you are not giving yourself enough credit there.
No, we always tell young writers not to compare themselves to other people, but I know that when I'm playing on Twitter, Nora Roberts is writing, Brenda Jackson is writing. I'm playing on Twitter, and they're getting the job done. But we all bring our talents to the table differently. There is no one way to do this. So for the aspiring writers out there, don't let anybody ever tell you or try to convince you that there's only one way into the castle. There's 1,000 ways into the castle, but you got to do the work. It's not easy. You got to do the work first.
So I think it was last week, it might have been before, you shared on Twitter the new cover for Indigo, which was just beautiful. Do you get any input on your cover art?
This is independently done.
Oh.
So I, thanks to Iris Bowling, because the woman she did the new Vivid cover, and she did the Indigo cover. Iris recommended her. Indigo is 25 years old this year.
Mm-hmm.
It went out of print with Avon probably maybe 4 years after. So, late 90s, early 2000s. And so my agent, who is fabulous, has a self-publishing arm in her shop. So Indigo has been back in print for, 1,000 years now. So we're celebrating 25 years of it still being discovered, still being loved, still being well loved. Putting out a hardcover edition with a new cover. There are 2 versions. We are waiting on Ingram, because they do the covers with the dust jacket, which will be for libraries and the indie bookstores. Amazon will also be doing a hardcover, but it will have the same cover, but it will not be a dust jacket.
Oh, okay.
So if you prefer the dust jacket, wait for the Ingram, and we'll have the ISBN up soon. It takes them about 72 hours or so before we know whether it's hooked up or not. So we're still waiting for the go on that. But it's exciting to know that, Vivid was 25 years old last year. That, I got a book that's been, putting a little bit of money in Mama's bank account for 25 years, and continues to. So, and the other covers are absolutely, that Vivid cover, all you wanted to do was just pet it, because it was just so beautiful. And I'm probably going to have the same reaction when I get the dust cover for the Indigo. So
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, I'm going to ask you maybe 1 or 2 of my more of my questions, and then we'll pass it over to the questions from the audience, if that's okay.
That is fine with me.
So, what do you say to people who you are such a strong voice for romance, and especially, authors of color? What do you say to people who belittle romance or talk about how, there shouldn't be diversity, that's not accurate? What do you say to those people?
To get a clue. I mean, really, we're still having this conversation.
Sadly.
I think Vanessa yesterday, God, you get old and you cannot remember your name. What's Vanessa's last name? Ah, anyway, it'll come to me. I tell people that romance is so difficult to write because Vanessa Riley, because you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with. We are the genre of hope. People have embraced romance during this pandemic because of how it makes them feel, of the comfort. And and when I run into these people who belittle romance, I tell them, I say, okay, well, I want you to sit down and I want you to write 80,000 words on your own relationship. I want to see the ups, the downs, the love scenes. I want to see all of the things that go into your relationship. And I want you to do it in 6 months. So far, I had no takers.
Say nope.
Not doing it. But they think it's easy. A lot of non-romance authors think that if they just throw something out there, they'll get rich. Doesn't work like that. Our readers are so savvy and so honed in on that HEA and so honed in on the hope and the structure and the comfort and the adventure and the diversity that you can't run an okie doke on them. They're not going to do that. But I was going to say, Vanessa Riley yesterday did a great article for Washington Post in their perspectives column on the issues of the people who think they know about historical accuracy, but don't. So and I suggest that anybody who's read Bridgerton and doesn't think that Black people existed, please go to Vanessa Riley's website and look at her spectacular research that she has done. And I tell them, I say, if you don't like romance, don't read it. We're not going to tie you down and force feed you to read it. And reading and writing romance will not give you cooties. So, but I think that we're getting a lot more respect because a lot more people have discovered what modern romance actually is. It's not Fabio, it's not rapey anymore. It's all about consent. And a lot of people don't know that. They think we still got Fabio on the cover. And I think we have probably decapitated enough people on Twitter that, especially people from the press, that they don't dare come at us anymore with dumb shit. Yeah, we got lots of heads on the gates of Romancelandia.
That's true.
Lots of heads on the gate. And it's a known thing on Twitter that people said, don't come for them. Do not come for the women and the guys of romance because they will gut you. So never attack people who use words for a living.
Oh, that's very good advice.
No, you don't. So that's sort of my, roundabout answer to your question.
That's good. So we had a couple people submit questions. One person just wanted to say that they love how you put the sources for some of your historical information and what inspired your stories in the notes at the end. And I agree. It's so cool to go and see where you can learn more about those topics.
Yeah. And that was the crux of Vanessa's article yesterday for the Washington Post, was using that author's notes to put the source material, to sort of, smack around the people who say it didn't happen or it wasn't true, or, just read the notes in the back.
Yeah. We have one person who asked if there is a place that you have signed copies of your books available, any bookstores they can be ordered from.
No, I'm going to work on that maybe with Indigo, see if we can, between me and my agent, figure out if, maybe we can send some to Loyalty, maybe we can send some to Love Sweet Arrow, Rip Bodice, 57th Street in Chicago. But that's a good idea. So I'm gonna work on that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. And we'll check out the if any of our listeners don't know, the places Miss was mentioning a lot of them are romance bookstores specifically.
Yeah. Because those are the people who support us. So I'm not gonna be sending anybody who doesn't have a romance section.
No.
Or sneers at our readers when they walk in and ask for, do you have Eloisa James? And they start laughing. So no, they're not getting any kind of.
No, they don't get copies.
And they definitely don't get autographed copies. So.
Somebody asked if it is your experience writing a novella versus a longer novel. Was it harder to put everything together? Was it a totally different process?
There are places where you say, oh, I could expand this, I could expand this, I could expand that. So it's just like it's like a cupcake, you as opposed to a full-size cake. Still got all the elements, just in a smaller package. But it's not any more difficult than well, big books, of course, are more difficult because you got more stuff to put in it. But the packaging is different. That's all.
And then somebody asked if we're going to be able to pre-order that novella on Amazon, and I would also like that answer.
I won't know like I said, I just sent it in this morning at 4 a.m.
Sure.
So the editor said she'd contact me tomorrow with. She's going to read it today. She'd contact me tomorrow to let me know what the next steps are. But I'm pretty sure you'll be able to pre-order. I just don't know when. But I will let you know.
Okay.
I have all my friends on Twitter, and I have 3 Facebook pages. So there will be no excuse for me not to get the word out.
And I mean, I want to keep you here forever. This has just been the highlight of my week. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm just going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
If there was just one thing that you want readers to know, either about your books or about romance in general, what would you tell them?
Oh, gosh.
And if that's too much, I can ask a different question.
No. I mean, I thought we were supposed to go through 8:30.
Oh, well, we can keep, yes, sure. Okay, let's do it. I have more questions.
Okay. One thing I would want people to know is that, I don't know. That's sort of a question I've never been asked before, which is novel, because I've been asked the same question sometimes for like ever.
Oh.
I would like them to know that romance represents hope, that some of the best writing and writers in America are romance writers because of the subject matter, that we don't write with crayons. Some of the subject matter is heavy. Mm-hmm. And me, I'm just trying to pay a light bill. I'm just, buy my books, help me pay my bills, and hope you enjoy what I write. Readers are so important. and so valuable, because without readers, we wouldn't be here. So any, people who have aspirations or, whatever's of being writers, please keep that in mind. You are nothing without your readers. I always tell my readers, when I count my blessings, I count them twice. We've all heard the story about how fabulous they were when I was walking with my husband during his terminal battle with cancer, and how much these women meant to me and how they supported me and lifted me up. But they paid for my kids' college education. They paid for my new cars. They paid my mortgage. I better act like I appreciate them. We got these kids going up and down the
I know, I heard them
on these little crotch rockets. I got my windows open. So if you aspire to be a writer, or if you are a writer now, please don't overlook the importance and the value that your readers bring to your career. Because I have been some places where I have seen some readers, with their heads up their asses in how they're dealing with their readers. And it eventually catches up with them. People have lost careers from not being as respectful as they should be with the people who are buying your books. Good grief. I mean, it's not a hard equation. So anyway, that's my soapbox moment for
I like it.
for readers and libraries, because not everybody can afford to buy books. I was on a tour years and years and years and years ago, and was with an author, and I don't know how we got to talking about libraries, but and this was an African American author, and she says, "Well, I don't see why people, use the library and they can just buy books." And I was like, poor little girl from the east side of Detroit. My parents couldn't afford books. And it was, you could see the light come on her head. It was like she had never thought about that.
Wow.
Libraries are so important, and people need to support them, because in many ways they are the hub of your community. My mother-in-law, God bless her, was the president of the library board. When the millage came up, she's like, "I'm not voting for the millage." What? You're the president of the library board. How can you not support the village? And she's fussing about how, crowded the library is. All I could do was look at her and shake my head. I'm like, really? People want the services, but they don't want to pay for it. Pay for your schools, pay for your libraries, because having strong libraries equates to having strong communities. So that's my soapbox moment for libraries too.
Yeah, make me cry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you mentioned, and I love this, that your heroes all have a bit of your husband in them. What would you say is the role or work of a Beverly Jenkins hero to dismantle the patriarchy?
To not be a part of the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
To support your women, to support, to help, to share her dreams, to do whatever you can to make sure she's healthy. Do housework. There's nothing sexier than a man cooking you dinner. When I was on deadline, my very first deadline, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I know I didn't have time to cook. So my husband came in and, still in his suit, picked up the kids, brought me dinner. I so appreciated that. He brought me flowers every time I finished a book.
Oh.
Yeah. So, there are many, many ways for men to cut patriarchy off at the knees. Um, but they have to do it. I mean, it's different than just talking about it, you know. Put your actions where your words are, and your woman will appreciate it. And it goes both ways too.
Mhm.
You know, women got to support their men too. So, yeah.
Did the pandemic influence or affect your writing or writing process at all?
Not really, because I'm always on lockdown. You know,
Hmm.
I've been having my groceries delivered, God, for the last 4 years. So, and I'm here by myself. So my daughter says I only go to the grocery store at church. So that didn't change. I mean, what did change was, you know, just feeling so, you know, for the people who lost family
Yeah.
members, you know, that was a pain. I mean, that was a pain in your heart to know that, you know, there was really nothing anybody could do. One of my nieces had just finished nursing school,
Oof.
and she was on the front line in Texas. And she was saying that, you know, after the pandemic had been going on for a while, that she and the others had felt so left behind because, you know, people were not, you know, at first they were very, very rah, rah, rah about the people on the front line. And she said, you know, we feel forgotten, you know. So of course I took to Twitter, and we spent 2 days saying rah, rah for those on the front line. But I mean, it gives you an appreciation, though. I didn't get to see my sisters and my brothers for Christmas. I lost my mom and my mother-in-law on the same weekend.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I lost my mother-in-law on Saturday and my mom on Monday in April, last 2 Aprils ago. So you didn't really get to have the funeral or the, you know, the celebrations that they deserved. Um, so we didn't do Thanksgiving, we didn't do Christmas together. Hopefully we will this year. So, I mean, those kinds of things affected everybody. But insofar as writing, no, because that was the only thing I could control,
Sure.
what I wrote. So, yeah, now it's getting too dark in here. I got hold on a minute, let me turn on the light.
Sure.
Hope my Rube Goldberg thing doesn't fall on my computer.
I
Huh.
love your shirt, by the way.
All right,
I
that's,
love I loved your shirt, your Black Authors Matter shirt. That is wonderful.
yeah. Gwen, what is Gwen's last name? Richardson, down in, where's she at? Houston. Um, has a book event, well, had a book event every year. And she did a series of Zoom videos for her constituency. And this was the shirt that she sent me as a thank you for being on her show. So I'm sure you can order them, people out there, if you're an
Hmm.
African American writer or not. I mean, even if you're just a white writer and you want to support, you know, you can go down and see her website.
Um, so I know I asked you earlier about your cover art, but what about your audiobook readers? The first book of yours that I read, I actually listened to, and
Mhm.
the reader was great. Do you get any input
Yeah,
on who
they
reads your
asked me,
books?
and I don't do audio,
Hmm.
so I rely on girlfriends. I have a couple girlfriends who do strictly audio, and they are judges for the Audis.
Oh, very cool.
Um, Probably not for the finalists, but for as the finalists makes their way through the pipeline. So I rely on them. I rely on the readers, and some of the readers um, love the narrators, and so I will, you know, Avon will say, "Well, who do you want? Here's the list," and I'll ask the readers, and they'll say yes, yes. And one narrator, they told me never let
Oh,
that person read my books again.
oh dear.
So we won't talk about that.
We won't speak of that.
But
No.
so I don't do audio. I can't imagine, because I don't get to read as often as I used to, because I'm writing, working most of the time. I want to sit down with a book or my Kindle in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I want to sit on the bed or sit on a couch and have a coffee to drink or outside and in my yard and just get that whole experience. And for me, audio is different. I'm not going to say it's better or it's worse
No,
or whatever. It's
just
just
different.
different. Yeah, it's just different. So I stick with the printed word.
I had somebody submit a question, and this is great. Do you think you would ever write a book set during the pandemic, or have it influenced your stories?
No. No, not for me. And I know that that's a question that's been kicked around a lot online. Um, and I think that some people are venturing into that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's, romance or not, but I have heard authors who are talking about it, but not for me. No, I just can't, you never say never though, but
Sure.
I just can't, I don't see myself right now doing that.
Yeah, and that seems like such a personal choice for each
Yeah.
author. It really
Yeah.
has to depend on what they do.
Right. Yeah.
So what do you do when you hit a writing wall, other than scream at your mirror to be mad at characters?
I don't believe in writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I may get to a point in the story where I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'll just leave it alone for a little bit, and maybe work on another part of the story. Or usually, and I'm like a lot of writers, it'll come to you in the shower, because it's a point where your brain is just sort of empty, and it's sort of open to wherever these stories come from. We don't know, but it's like getting the channeling going. The channel opens, and you're in the shower, and the next thing you know, you're going, oh, you're jumping out of the shower naked and dripping wet, and you're looking for paper and pen so you don't forget. But I don't believe in writer's block. And I've been places where, people say, well, I've been blocked for 7 years. And I'm like, what? You obviously are not using this to pay your bills. Because if you were using this to pay your bills, you would not have been blocked for 7 years. That sounds like a physical personal problem. So I don't believe in writer's block. And I think if you don't believe in it, you don't get it.
So I know you said you haven't had a ton of time to read lately, but is there any particular book that made you join the Bad Decision Book Club where you stay up until 4 a.m. reading and you fully regret it?
Everything by Alona Andrews.
Oh, yeah.
I will be up for days. I'm waiting on her second, what is it, the Iron Chronicles, Iron something with Hugh, who was the hated man in the Kate Daniels series. And she and Gordon have turned that man into a hero, and we are just, what? So, yeah. Eve Dallas with Nora. There's a lot. Rebecca Weatherspoon. El Penelope stuff. I mean, I do that with everybody. I try and do a one shot all the way through kind of read, because I'm usually behind, and I try not to read while I'm writing. But yeah, Alona mostly.
They're wonderful.
They are so wonderful, and they're nice people too.
Oh,
Well, that helps. I mean, they are just great people.
and for those of you listening, I'm not joking. Go and check out Miss Bev's Twitter feed. She will give you so many excellent recommendations of authors of all sorts of romances to check out, which it's always so fun.
Yeah.
I only have a couple questions left. You've just been so wonderful with your answers, and
Yeah, well, people want to know, so you want to try and help. Be a help. What Mr. Rogers say? Be a helper. So I'm trying to be a helper in the neighborhood.
if there was somebody who was interested in getting a book published, do you have any advice for somebody who just doesn't know where to start?
I would tell them to. I usually send them to. Oh God, what's her name? It'll come to me. I'm 70 years old, girl. My brain
You're
is
doing great.
oh God, what's her name? Anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. Um, she has a website. Of course, she has a website. If I don't think of it, I'll give it to you and you can put it in the.
Perfect. Because I send everybody afterwards all of the recommendations and links in the chat, so everybody will get an email.
Yeah. But I do recommend that you, Jane Friedman, janefriedman.com. She was a big time publisher. She had her own imprint, editor, publisher, and now she is helping self-published people with the ins and the outs and the do's and the don'ts. And she's got webinars and she has books and just a wealth of information. Because as an aspiring writer, it's your job to know as much about the business of writing that you can. Because there are people out there who steal your dreams, and you don't want that to happen. So you arm yourself with knowledge. And because it doesn't matter how talented you are if you don't know the process. If you don't know how to write a query letter, if you don't know how to put a synopsis together, if you don't know, who to send your books to. So you need to learn as much as you can about the business of writing. So sorry for having these blanks in my brain.
No, that's so helpful. I mean, I certainly wouldn't know that a query letter is a thing. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like, can I send you my stuff? That's a query letter. So yeah.
oh, and I got some more questions submitted. So
Let's go.
So somebody said, what's one quality you would suggest for a new romance author?
I mean, a writing quality or?
I think, yeah. What's something that would maybe be really important for romance specifically?
Not to give up, not to, and I think, and it's not just romance specifically. I mean, everybody has the same thing. Not to give up. Reviews are for readers, not for writers. Let these people review your books. Don't read them. Definitely do not call them out or go to their house.
Oh, no.
Don't be crazy. Don't be crazy, I guess it's another, but write your story your way. Don't try and write like someone else. Don't try and write like me. Don't try and write like Rebecca. Don't try and write like Courtney. Don't try and write like Kit Roca. Write like yourself, because that's your voice. You can't borrow somebody else's voice. I got a lot of them. We could be here forever with me telling you, qualities. And ask questions. If you don't know, go to Twitter, throw your hand up. Somebody will help you. That's what Romance Landia. For those who don't know what Romance Landia is, that's Romance Twitter. Somebody said, well, where can I find it? It's on Twitter. It
on Twitter.
doesn't really exist. It's just a state of mind. So, but we will answer your questions.
I want that on a shirt, Romancelandia. It's a state of mind.
Yeah, state of mind.
I like that. Mm-hmm. Well, and somebody asked, do you use a writers group, or is that kind of, would that be your writers group, like Twitter, reaching out to people?
Everybody's different, like I said. Some people need that input. They need that writers group. They need that support. And some of us are hermits. And I'm the hermit type because in the end, you're the only person that has to make that decision as to how that book's going to be written. But you get your support where you can. Some people have one critique partner. Some people have five. Some people have a whole, like RWA, they have a whole chapter. So you do what works for you. And what works for you is your process. Don't try and be somebody else. But I don't do critique groups. I never have.
So would you ever consider writing with a writing partner, or is for you writing very much once you're done, you pass it off to your team for editing and things, but this part is just yours?
Yeah, the process for traditional writing is as you write your, what you think is your best draft. You send it to your editor at your publishing house. He or she reads it, sends you a revision letter, and the editor's job is not to change your story. Your editor's job is to help you write the strongest story and the best story. So you're a team. I've run into aspiring writers who say, well, I don't need an editor, or the editor is only going to change my story. And I'm like, I've been out here 27 years. I know I need an editor. I always need an editor. You need that eye that is distant. And 9 times out of 10, that story, you need an editor. The story is, not all you think it's going to be. And never send your first draft. First drafts are shitty. They're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
First drafts are what you throw up against the wall to see what sticks. Do not send that. Do not upload that as your book, please. Spare your reputation and your readers. Where were we going with this?
I forget too. Oh my gosh.
Girl.
I just got involved. I was like, yes, tell me more. So how many drafts would you say your books go through, or does that depend on the story?
I edit this up right.
Okay.
Some people will do a whole draft, and then go back and start editing. So it may take me 12 hours to do 2,000 words. Because I am writing, a couple paragraphs. I'll get up, go out, have a cigarette, or walk to the mailbox and come back and look at it and say, okay, I need to fix this, 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 and this. And I'll fix that and then I'll go on. It's different for everybody. Learn what works for you, and then that'll be your process.
And I think we might leave it at that.
It's up to you.
Miss Bev, thank you so much. This has just been an absolute joy to get to hear about your beautiful books and your process. And I cannot thank you enough for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, this is, like I said, this time yesterday, I was, going, oh my God, I got 4,000 more words to go. But I looked forward to this. I look forward to meeting you. So it's been a win-win for you and for me and for everybody who's still here. We still got 44 folks here.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this helped. The readers had fun. The people who were tuned in, they had fun. Hopefully I answered burning questions that needed answers to.
And real quick, I'm just going to put in our survey for our Emma got it. Thank you, Emma. She's putting in our survey link. So if people don't mind, it helps us know how to improve our programs in the future.
Fill out the survey. Over there. Fill out the survey, please.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. And then Emma's also going to put into the link, we have some other author talks coming up on the next few weeks. We have a historian, Emma's just going to put all the links in there. They all look very exciting. I do not get to do those interviews, but I know that Joan, who is, will do a wonderful job. And please go and buy Miss Jenkins books, please go check them out from the library. They are available in ebook, print, audiobook, all of those. Just go
Everything.
read her beautiful works.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind. You're
Oh,
so
I just, again, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how exciting this has been for me.
all right. Well, I've had a good time. Now I'm going to go eat because I know when I go to Facebook, the ladies are going to say, Miss Bev, did you eat today? And I don't want to lie to them. So I'm
Good.
going to
Thank you.
go eat. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Love you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You too.